Greetings, fellow slingers, and welcome back to Roll the Hard 20 podcast, episode 17. It is I, your trusted DM, Brian, and I'm not alone this evening. I have with me a very special guest, one of the co-hosts of the Glass Cannon podcast, Maher. Now, everybody put your hands together and give this man a nice warm welcome. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on board. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So I just wanted to go through, ask you a couple questions, get to kind of know you, let all few of my listeners know that, hey, you're there, man.
Sure. That sounds great.
All right. Well, I'll just, is there anything you want to ask me before we begin, or?
What's your background?
My background, I was playing basic D&D back in 83. And I played up to about 87 when I got a job and found girls. And then,
okay.
I got back.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks. I got back into it about 97, where we started playing some more second edition. And then I got married and all that stuff and had kids, sold off of my books, and then repurchased all my books. And then started rebuying all the basic stuff, and my buddy was telling me about.
I think I see some of them behind you on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see all that stuff. There's
Upper left, I see all the old D&D stuff there.
Yeah. Then I found out about Pathfinder, and I was like, yeah, what is Pathfinder? And somebody had mentioned it was the 3.5 rule set. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then that core rule book was just like $60 or something. I was like,
yeah,
I'll check that out on Amazon. So I slowly started developing my library of those books, and I think that Paizo's got a great presentation compared to other books out there, other systems out there, including the fourth edition that I was playing. And anyways, what about your background? I know that you've been playing for quite some time, right?
Yeah, I started playing. I think I started playing in 1980 with the Red Box, and then I moved pretty quickly to advanced. I think like 82 or something. I moved on to advanced, and then I played that for a while. I don't think I even got into second edition. I think I kind of moved on. I stopped playing in like sophomore year of high school or something. That was the last time I played, and then I didn't really play again until like 99, like after college. I was in a show. And turns out like a bunch of the other guys in the show used to play, and we were like, hey, well, let's start a campaign. And so we did, and I've been playing ever since.
Yeah, it's amazing like how many people play the game that you don't know play the game until you get to know that side of them. They're like, oh, it's funny because I knew that there was some of the kids like in junior high, there was this really tough looking kid, and he lived like right down the street from me, and we became fast friends just because he played D&D, so I didn't have a lot of money. So I kept running through like the basic and expert and companion sets, but they would incorporate their first edition rules to them. So we kind of gel those together and stuff, and, run the monster manual and the fiend folio and all that badass stuff.
Yeah.
But so I guess we're already going through this thing right now. I don't really have to give much of an introduction other than to say, greetings, fellow slingers, and welcome back to Roll the Hard 20 and my special guest, Maher.
Hi,
everybody.
Skid.
He's known as Galabras the Cleric, Nestor Coin, Pembroke the Potent, and of course, Dr. Friss, which I got to say, I love Dr. Friss because
thank you.
I was watching The Expanse right about the time you guys came out with your androids and aliens. I was like, oh man, that's that one belter guy. I love that guy's voice. And it's funny because I guess you put together a YouTube video on that guy, like all of his talks and stuff.
Yeah, that was because my favorite, like I love that show too. And I started reading the books and everything. I got really into it. I love good, like smart science based sci-fi, and Expanse I think is a great example of that. And it has some great talent on the show too, including Jared Harris, who's one of my favorite actors.
Yes.
And so they came up with a dialect for the people who grew up. There's generations of people who were raised in miners in the asteroid belt. And so it's this kind of combination of English and sort of West African and Chinese and some of these things. So it's like this melange. And Jared Harris, I thought, did the best version of that, the one that I wanted to most emulate. So I cut together a compilation of every single scene that he had in that show. And I put it up on YouTube. And his wife found it. And she was like, Jared Harris's wife, and she was like, "Oh, look, somebody did this." It's like, "Oh, this is so cool." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like, I'm trying to learn the accent. And she was just like, "Oh, that's so funny because he is about to get on a plane right now. If he weren't, I would ask him to do like a quick tutorial session with you."
Man.
I was like, well, I could work on his schedule, like whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, in fact, when I was putting together a home campaign, I was going to have one of the main tribes speak that. And then I heard you speak it. I'm like, oh man, I can't. There's no way I could come close to that. That's amazing. I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'm a really big fan of your role playing. I mean, just the stuff that you put together. You have earned every bottle cap that you've won, and you should steal more because there's no way that you don't deserve more. But
thank you.
Yeah. Like recently, you were out in my neck of the woods out here in California, and when you guys played at the Bootleg Theater, and Troy put on the Strange Aeons Adventure Path. That was actually really cool. I enjoyed that. In fact, that's the first time I met you in person. Mm-hmm. And you described your character as being portrayed by Bruce Spence, the gyro captain from The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
The guy that yelled "yeah" in the audience was me.
Oh, that was you.
That was me.
Okay. Awesome.
I think we're the only two oldest people in that room that religiously have watched that movie. So.
I figured there would be one person that would really get excited by that.
Dude, I
figured there's one guy out there who's going to get super excited when I say Bruce Spence, and that it makes sense that it was you. So that's awesome.
A quick fella might have a weapon under there. I'd have to pin his head to that panel. Man, I love that movie.
It's so cool. I love. I was watching the original Mad Max. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now.
Is that the one where they dubbed his voice, or the one where they left his voice in?
I think it's all the original dialogue. I think.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's just like it's like I remember watching it as a kid, but I only watched it like maybe twice because it's a totally different kind of story than Road Warrior or
it's
Thunderdome.
A slow burn. It's definitely a slow burn. Yeah. And you want to wait till the end where he's got that guy in the handcuffs and he throws that hacksaw down there and he's like, "All right, man, see you later." And the guy just never makes it out. It's like you could see the evolution of his character. Yeah. But it's wild because they're two totally different movies with the same character, but they've got two different tones to them. Definitely.
Yeah, two completely different feels, but yeah, it's still great. But yeah, Bruce Spence is awesome.
Now, when you guys put on your podcast, do you ever listen to your own podcast, like reflect back on it, or listen to any of the chronological stuff that goes on? Or
yeah, I do sometimes. I used to listen when we first started, like the first year and a half. I listened every week, and then I just got kind of caught up in other things. But yeah, if there's like an important moment, I'll go back and listen to something. It's like, what happened? It's like I'm trying to remember an event or something from past episodes. One thing that I do is the podcasts that I'm running, where I'm GMing the game,
The Ruins of
the Lost Continent. I do listen to that. I listen to every episode of that just so I can put together notes.
Repeat that name again. I'm sorry. Repeat that name.
It's Raiders of the Lost Continent.
Right, of the Ruins of Aslan Adventure Path.
Yeah, the Ruins of Aslan Adventure Path.
I think we kind of crossed at the same time. I want to make sure everybody can hear your.
Oh, sure.
Please go on.
Yeah, so I listened to every episode of that, and then before the next session, then I just put together a bunch of bullet point notes for next time, just so I know where I'm at. But yeah.
What made you decide on doing the Raiders of the Lost Continent, the Ruins of Aslan adventure path?
There were a few that I was looking at. I was looking at Iron Fang Invasion, and a couple other ones. Iron Fang Invasion, I ultimately I wanted to do something kind of old school. That's kind of like more like the adventures that I played as a kid. The big one, the one that I loved when I was playing initially, was my friends and I did the Scourge of the Slave Lord super module.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you remember, but it incorporated like Against the Giants and
right. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. In fact, I think I have the commemorative one that they re-released a couple years ago. I went and picked that up. I was like, yeah, I got to get that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
yeah, it's great. And it's actually like it's I can't remember it. Like it incorporates modules, but that it ends up going into Against the Giants, I think, which we never got to, but because they never used to do that. Like D&D never used to have these like big overarching adventures. Everything was like basically self-contained 30-page modules. And Scourge of the Slave Lords was the first kind of like long form story that they did.
They covered 3 modules, I think, at the time, didn't they? That where they had, like, it was all encompassing of 3.
Yeah, they were these like three module series, like the A1, A2, A3, like the Against the Giants, you know. But this was the first one that would take characters. I think it was from like level 1 to level 6, and that was really I was just like really intrigued by that. But anyway, I just wanted to do something with that kind of old school feel. So I was looking at Iron Fang Invasion, but the problem with that one is that the first chapter of it is very sandboxy, and that would not make for good radio, I thought. So I ended up, and there was another one I was looking at, a couple others I was looking at, but the reason I chose Ruins of Aslan was because I was a huge fan of Lost.
Yeah.
The TV show. And I've always been intrigued by Roanoke, the lost colony of Roanoke. And it has those two kinds of elements. It's just like, and The Prisoner, like I love like The Prisoner, the TV show. And I just love the fact of these ancient, like super ancient cultures and colonists like going out like into this mystery, like several millennia old mystery, and like discovering it, and just weird stuff like cropping up on this island. I was just really, and the chance to explore the Aslanti society, because I've ran Rise of the Rune Lords, which concerns mostly Thessalonian cultures. These are the two like rival empires, like 10,000 years ago, before this great cataclysm on the planet that Pathfinder takes place on. And so I've really done a lot of stuff with the Thessalonian Empire. I wanted to see what the Aslanti Empire had to offer, and so. And it's great. Like I love like the story's fantastic. The underlying mystery is really awesome. And ultimately the guys have come up with really great characters that have come together in a really interesting way. So yeah, I'm very happy with it, and I'm glad I picked it.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. In fact, I'm like a collector of the sense where if I start buying something, I like to try to complete, the collection stuff, and eventually I'll get around to picking that up. That's like the last AP I want to look at, because I don't want to spoil anything that you guys have got going on your end.
Okay.
I mean, I just, because you guys weave tales that are just outside of the normal narrative of the AP themselves, where you start bringing in the backstories of the characters, you start bringing in NPCs that may have influenced those PCs through their earlier years and things. And that's the kind of stuff that I see that you guys really rock on. And I remember for many years, I've been listening to podcasts, probably like 8 years. And most of the D&D podcasts were just about people that sit down and talk about the mechanics. I was looking for a podcast that actually put those mechanics to the test. And I specifically wanted a Pathfinder one. And it was while listening to the No Direction podcast where Ryan and Parham had interviewed Troy. I think you were writing in during that time when Troy was on there. It's like, this is what I've been looking for. And in fact, I had heard the podcast while I was at work, so I wrote down the Glass Cannon podcast real fast somewhere. And then that's where I just started just shotgunning through your stuff. And I remember telling my buddy who works next to me, you got to listen to this. And, after a couple of hecklers, I eventually got him to start listening to it. He's the one that joined me at your bootleg theater. In fact, he bought the tickets for us, So, I mean, he really digs you guys too. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's I really enjoy listening to the different mechanics of that. Currently I'm running with the 5th edition rule set only because most of my players have already used that, and trying to get them to move over to Pathfinder is just too expensive right now. It's a huge buy-in, but I'm hoping that once they correct the 2nd edition stuff, that it might be more user-friendly for us to make that switch. Because I just think Paizo just has what it takes. They got a good group of Christmas gnomes working on this stuff, just banging this thing out. It's excellent.
Yeah, it's cool. I have gotten to know a lot of them over the course of doing the podcasts, and they're great. And that was the thing that attracted me to Paizo and Pathfinder in the first place more than anything, was the quality of the writing, like the adventure writing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And the fact that the mechanics kind of feel more like they captured the feel of the Dungeons and Dragons that I grew up playing way better, because I was in a 4th edition campaign too.
I love 4E. I really do.
Yeah, I was, and I didn't like it. I didn't like 4E.
Oh,
so
all right, I gotta go. No, close my camera. We're out of here. I gotta delete this.
We have to fight now. But no, I was, I was having fun, but it was like a lot of the stuff. It's like the same complaints that like so many Pathfinder players now have. It's just like it felt like too much like they were trying to emulate some kind of World of Warcraft like computer MMORPG, and trying to attract, that kind of player. And it's just like, no, I'm a tabletop player. Like, I want to play a tabletop game. I want to play a game geared towards tabletop. And so, one of my friends was in, he told me about Pathfinder, and he told me the whole story of it. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you know this story. I don't know how many people know this story, but I was talking to Jason Bullman, who kind of invented the game. He invented Pathfinder.
Yeah, he took his homebrew notes, right?
What's that?
I think he'd taken his homebrew notes and gave them to Lisa Stevens, and that's how they put together the core rule book for Pathfinder. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, but it was so funny because the code name that he gave for the first draft of the rule set was Mon Mothma.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was just like, because I saw it, because we were at Gen Con a couple years ago.
I'm a Star Wars fan, by the way, so I'm not saying that.
I'm shocked.
What are the odds, right? Oh, my God.
What are the odds that?
It's a trap.
But I saw it because at Gen Con 50, I think it was 50, they had 2 years ago, whatever the Gen Con was in Indy, on the Lucas Oil Field where the Indianapolis Colts play, they had like a kind of pop-up museum of role-playing history. And that first draft, Jason's first draft, was sitting in a case and said Mon Mothma on it. And I was just like, why would he call it Mon Mothma? Like, why would that be the code name? And I figured it out because Mon Mothma has that line in Return of the Jedi, where she says, the Empire has made a critical error. Right. And it's like, that was our time to strike. And I figured it was just like, that's what I think Jason is talking about 4th edition and how they messed up. And now is the time for him to introduce his system. And I asked him about it, and he was like, you're right. That's exactly it.
That's cool.
I've never been more proud of myself. That is 100% my proudest moment that I've ever had.
That is great. That's totally excellent.
But isn't that cool? Isn't that like a cool thing?
Put the geek crown on. That's like, crowned you king. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. That's a cool story. Yeah, I heard that all those guys over at Pathfinder and Paizo, they're just really approachable people. And, I've never been to PaizoCon, so I imagine it being this huge place. But, I don't know. It's just some of the pictures I see from the No Direction stuff. It makes it seem like it's more like a cozier environment, you know?
Yeah,
everybody's.
It's way more intimate than most of these other cons. Certainly like Gen Con. Or what other cons do you do? Do you go to a lot of cons? Or
I haven't been to any cons. For me to try to convince my wife that I'm going to go hang out in a hotel with a bunch of other nerds, and I'm a nerd at heart. I don't know how she gets, I guess she loves me. She really loves me, but it's like,
that's great.
I'll support it, but when I'm not going to fly you out to it, that's probably her mentality. So, but,
well, they're great. It's fun. I get sick every single time, but PaizoCon, it's smaller. It's like you really get to know everybody, and all the Paizo guys are there, and like you can talk to them, and you can talk shop, and there's games running all the time, and everybody there is like super into Pathfinder and all that stuff, and it's a really good place to meet like kindred spirits. But we had a great time last time, so we can't wait for the next one.
Well, that is amazing. I'm moving on to this part. Listening to your podcast. It's really inspired me to do my own thing, but for that you need like a group, obviously, and a dedicated group at that. And that's what the Glass Cannon podcast is. Now, everyone on the GCP is dedicated, and you guys really set the bar high. You got the best audio. You got great camaraderie. You guys are all different ages, so I think it really hits, a whole slew of age ranges. Did you really know before everyone started this what kind of a juggernaut this thing was going to become?
No, we had no idea.
I mean, holy crap, dude. This thing is like lightning in a bottle. And I see like plenty of other podcasts starting to emerge, and not just like D&D ones, which there are plenty of those, but even Pathfinder ones. Whereas like a couple of years ago, they were like, you couldn't even find one. That's why when I wrote yours down, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody actually did one of these. And you guys don't just have like a microphone sitting in the middle of the table and people eating and stuff. I mean, you guys got the headset. You guys are dedicated. You guys got your thing going on. How did you guys go about making the decision that you should start recording your podcast? Whose idea was it was it already a weekly group? And
well, I think what was happening at the time was I was in a Jade Region campaign with Joe and Troy, and Grant sat in a couple of times on that one, so they knew Grant. And Grant was in my Rise of the Rune Lords campaign.
The new Grant? Did you like replace him with a replicant or something? I mean, the new Grant.
No, it's still original Grant.
Simulacrum.
Well, that was the thing, was in our Jade Region campaign, we had a character who was a Magus class. And we set him up so that his backstory was that he had like multiple personality disorder, and so he was our guest character. He's like our guest, our loaner car.
Oh, okay.
So anyone who wanted to come in and just play a session or two, they could come in and run that character, and they would come up with whatever personality they wanted for him, and that would be one of his personalities. And then they would just and if they came back, like that personality would reemerge. So it got to be really interesting. And then Grant came in and he would play that character a couple of times.
That's a cool dynamic though for a guest PC, is they have an identity disorder like that where anybody can play this person however they want. That's really cool.
I recommend that to anybody who wants to do something. That was Joe's idea, and I was like, that's brilliant. Like, that's so great. And it ended up adding so much to the story. And it got to be. It was a window. It was an opening for anybody to come in and do whatever they wanted with this character, So, and to make sense within the world of the story, which was important to us too. But I think what happened originally was I was listening to Nerd Poker, which I don't know if you've listened to, but it was I think it's still going, but it's Brian Posehn's podcast, where he and his friends were playing a homebrew 4th edition. I think they started in 4th. It was a D&D campaign. And it was really good, and it was super funny, but they didn't take it very seriously. And I told Joe and Troy about it, and then Troy had the idea, why don't we do our own podcast? And Joe was just like, no, of course we can't, you idiot. So it's like, here are the reasons why we can't do this. Money, time, no one will listen, blah, blah, blah. This is their dynamic all the time. Troy will come up with an idea, like a crazy idea. Joe will tell them all the reasons it won't work. And then eventually they come together and figure out something that they can make happen. But yeah, it was originally Troy's idea. But the nice thing is Troy is, he has editing experience. Joe is a voice talent agent. And he has like a real solid background in competitive speech. He's like a national champion in college at a debate. Grant is a professional audio and video producer, editor. Matthew's a playwright. And I've just been playing like role-playing games since I was in 3rd grade. So everyone had a particular skill set that was fed in to like make this something that we could make sound really good. And then the reason that we wanted to do it in the first week, we said like, hey, look, if nothing else, this will give us an excuse where we can tell our wives and girlfriends, like, we have to play this week. I'm sorry. It's like, at least this will give us an excuse to be able to play all the time. And it worked. So,
well, that's good. I mean, you guys are going strong. You guys have been doing a great job. And I'm happy to say that I don't think I was one of the first listeners, but I caught on with a huge, huge fervor.
Oh, that's great.
Now, you guys began with episode 1 of the Giant Slayer Adventure Path. And that came out in, 2015.
Yes.
And that was the newest AP at the time, I guess. Is that why you guys chose that one? Or what was the reason? I mean, I know everybody wants to do the Rise of the Rune Lords, but I think that's kind of like the hallmark of Pathfinder APs at this point. So people would want to see or listen to newer or different adventure paths, right?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I would have loved to have done Rune Lords too, but I had already run Rune Lords. Or I was still in book 4 at that point. I still haven't finished it, by the way.
I give you guys props for going and still going through the Giant Slayer, because most people would peter out once it gets to a higher level of play. That you would almost, all right, well, let's get some fresh guys or some fresh PCs, but you guys managed to do that with like Androids and Aliens and Ruins of Aslan and the totally forgot the other one. Help me.
Strange Eons?
That would be it.
Yeah, that's the one you came.
Well, you guys only, in my defense, you guys only played it once. Did you guys record that, by the way?
We did, yes.
Okay, good.
And I know it actually, I've seen some of the footage, and we did like audio, video, everything, and I've seen some of the footage. And my buddy who lives in LA is a filmmaker, and he came out at last minute to do video for it, and it looks incredible, and hopefully that will be available soon. It just because I can't wait to see it, because what I've seen looks amazing. But yes,
yeah, it was a really great time. Now, when you guys put together your Giant Slayer, how'd you guys come up with the decision who would be the game master?
Troy was like, "This is my thing. Like, I really want to run this," and I was like, "Yeah, cool." We're all just like, "Sure." Troy was already running us through Jade Regent, and he was doing a great job. And so it was just like, yeah, he's stand-up comedian, like great, really good actor. And he thought like, yeah, he's probably the perfect guy to, like, if we're going to do a show like this, the GM really has to keep the story going. He has to keep the mood up. He has to, has just a ton of responsibility to keep it listenable and enjoyable. And we figured that Troy would be the best guy for that. So, yeah.
Yeah. When I saw him at the Bootleg Theater, I said, I just want to tell you that I think you weave a very compelling narrative outside of the adventure path. Just, like I explained earlier, just weaving all your backstories together and stitching it. I mean, it seems so seamless that you can't tell unless you've read the adventure path, which he always accuses you of having read that adventure path. You can't tell what he's added in or what he's, or what's in the book. You don't know where the improvisation begins or ends. And I think that's amazing that he's able to do that.
Yeah, he has honestly done a fantastic job with that. Like, he's come up with some incredible ideas, because that's one of the fun things about a game like this. It's something you can't do in a computer game.
No,
like you can't kind of involve your own creative story elements into like any kind of RPG, like on a computer game. This is something you can only do in tabletop, and we want to take advantage of it. And Troy's done a really great job coming up with incredible ideas and working with us to kind of take our character backstories and like pick out like threads in there that he can weave into the Giant Slayer story kind of I think he's done like a great job of making it seamless and more fun for us too, because we feel like we're more actively contributing to this overall narrative. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's very seamless. Now, as a gamer, do you prefer to be the GM or do you prefer to be the player?
I prefer running the game. I prefer being a GM. I started out when I was a kid. I was always a GM. I love playing, but yeah, my preference is to GM. I like being able to play all the different characters, like playing every other character in the world. I love doing different like dumb voices and coming up with, characterizations and everything. I like being able to control the tempo and, kind of drive the story that way. It's a lot more work, as I'm sure you know, but it's worth it.
Now, as someone that's close to you in age, and I think this would apply to anybody that's listening to your podcast and their respective ages, I find myself drawn like to the things that you particularly say, like that highbrow humor. Does any of that stuff kind of? It's really funny. Yeah. Some of the shit you say, like I kind of go back over some of the older podcasts just because I like to hear the audio. Actually, I like to hear how you guys have put together your audio and the you guys are. I don't even hear you guys editing. I don't know if you guys do that or not, but it sounds really, really tight. But I think at one point people were asking who they believed in God-wise, and Matthew had said he was an atheist. And you were saying that was a bold choice in a world that, what did you say, demonstratively has nothing but all these deities and godlike entities?
I said, like, she's an atheist. It's like, that is a bold choice in a world in which gods demonstrably exist.
Yes, that was beautiful. Oh, man.
I still remember the look on Matthew's face when I said that. It was priceless. I just love it.
And that's the kind of stuff you guys really need to, like, capture the moment on. I mean, like, I work in a shop, so, like, I'm hearing, guns going off all the time, but I've got my headphones in, and that's where I get the bulk of my listening is through podcasts. I don't have the opportunity or the time allocated to me to watch a video, but sometimes at night I would love to sit down and see that kinds of stuff. That's really hilarious shit.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Now with the GCP running so many shows now, do you guys ever worry that that your passion for the game might become like perverted, or like where it becomes more of a chore than an enjoyment?
Yeah, I think we have worried about that. I'm worried more about, honestly, sometimes worried about Troy just because like he's working
because he's crazy, man. He's gonna snap.
Yeah, I worry that he's gonna snap because like he's doing so much, and just by the nature of him being the GM on three of these shows, now 3 with Strange Eons, that's just so much more work. And now he has basically gone full time on the podcast, which is nice. So we can devote a lot more time to that. But then he also just had a baby, so it's like,
yes,
I worry about that. And like, sometimes we're like,
but Joe just had a baby too, not too long ago, right?
Yeah, Joe had his second kid about the same time. And I worry. I really worry about
check that milkman in that neighborhood, man.
Yeah, I know.
Making too many stops, man.
They live in different states, so everything's fine. Assuming they don't have, I don't know, Amazon Prime or something. But I do worry about that. And but the nice thing is because of the way we record, we tend to record in like clusters. So we'll do like 2 or 3 episodes in a sitting, and we'll try to kind of press those together into like a little time frame. So we'll play for pretty intensely for a while, and then we'll have a little bit of time off until we let go again. So like right now, as we're recording this, we haven't played in 10 days.
Oh wow, I thought mine had been a while.
Yeah, but it's like that's the longest. I think that's the longest time that we've gone since we started. And I really want to play again. Like
it was because Halloween though, right?
Yeah,
that's what happened with me too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that, and there's some traveling going on and stuff, family stuff. So but yeah, like but that's nice because it keeps me. The games are still fun. Like they're still just really fun. Like I'm really involved in all of them, and I still really look forward to playing myself. So hopefully we can keep it fresh.
Yeah, I think for like my fix, my daughter wanted to play the other day, so I was able to. All right, yeah, we'll put together some characters for you, and we started playing a little bit. I think I posted something on Facebook or whatever, but yeah, she's like, yeah, I want some minis now, and she's all painting her minis.
How old is she?
She'll be 10 in 3 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's like I already put my son through that. He's 17 now. He wants nothing to do with it anymore. I'm like,
great.
You'll be back. You'll be back.
He'll be back. Same thing happened to me.
I'll nail a D20 to his door. He'll be back. Hey there, I'll throw him out.
Yeah.
But on a personal note, what is Skidmar like in life?
I don't know. I've been an actor. I was an actor for a long time until I realized that I kind of hated it. I don't like. I finally realized I moved to New York to be an actor, and doing a lot of like off Broadway stuff, and I finally realized it's just like I don't like this. I hate rehearsing. I don't like saying stuff that other people tell me to say. I don't like listening to directors and having to do what they want. I could see
that in you too. It's like, yeah, I want to say this. This is much more intriguing than what you wrote down here. I don't.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I would end up, especially early on, I would end up improvising all the time. I'd be like, I don't like that line. I'm going to say this line. And they'd be like, no, say the line as written. It's just like, okay, sure. And then I go up and just say whatever I wanted. And they'd just get so mad. But at that time, it was always too late to get rid of me, whatever. But then I got beaten down, man. I got beaten down. Everybody was like, no, say the words as written. You got to have respect for the authors. Like, okay, all right. And all the joy eventually got sucked out of it for me. And I just started to hate it. And I was just like, no, I'm done. And then we started doing this. And it was like, this is what I wanted the whole time.
It's liberating.
Yeah, it's liberating because I'm contributing. Like, you're writing basically the story or co-writing the story on the fly. You've got your own character. You have your own say as to who they are and what they want to do. And it scratches that itch that I had from as a kid, but without all the stuff that I hated about the business. So yeah, I'm really into that. And I lived in Japan for a little bit. I'm from Colorado originally.
My father's from Colorado.
You like Colorado?
I've never been there. My father's from Colorado.
Oh, where? Do you know where?
La Junta.
Where's he from? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, totally. All right.
I don't know where that's at. I've never been there.
It's in southern Colorado. It's
I don't want to wind up like the Donner Party somewhere out there in somebody's mountain chewing on my own leg because I'm out there by myself trying to find a game to roll in or something like that.
It's funny you said that because before we started recording, I turned on The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
And it's on now, next to me. I'm turning over. It's the bar scene right now. And in the beginning of that movie, when they're driving up to the hotel, they're talking about the Donner Party. And it's funny that you say that. But yeah, no, I mean, I love video games. I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 right now.
Is that any good?
I love it. I really love it. I loved the first one, and this one is even better.
Yeah, I've been a Dark Souls fan. I played all 3 games. I played Demon Souls, and it's funny because I beat Dark Souls so many times, but when they released the HD version for the PS4, man, I am getting my ass handed to me. I don't know if my mind isn't there anymore, or maybe I've lost something. I don't know. I'm afraid. So I go back to Skyrim where I could just beat up frost spiders and steal their venom.
Yeah, that's more my speed too. I'm more into the Skyrim, that kind of RPG stuff. But Joe and Troy, they love Dark Souls. They love that stuff.
It's good. I mean, it's a dark game. I like that. In fact, as I'm sure, as a dark person myself, I'm sure you hear this plenty of times, but I think out of all your characters that you've portrayed, I love Nestor Coin.
Thank you.
I mean, with the whole Umlo thing, I don't want to say anything because I don't know if people are up to speed, but man, I tell you, that is beautiful.
Oh, thanks, man.
He's totally my favorite. So
thank you. I miss that guy, but it was also cool. Yeah, like because I never played an evil character before, ever. Even in a video game, like I had always like pick all the like good Paragon options or whatever. So I was just like, I want to give it a try. I want to see if I can make an evil character who isn't just like thwarting the party he's a part of at every turn. I want to figure out a way to get him to work with the party while still being evil, So yeah, that was super fun. That was super fun for me.
Yeah, well, it was very entertaining listening to the whole thing. It was funny because I was just looking through a book of mine because I'm like, when's the last time I've been out to New York? I thought it was 2 years ago, but apparently it was 3 years ago. And there's this place in Manhattan called Midtown Comics.
Of course.
Have you been there? I'm sure you have, probably.
Oh, dozens and dozens and dozens
that
of times.
place
yes.
is beautiful, man.
It's great.
I was looking and I found.
Well, there's a couple locations too. There's a couple locations, but
the Martial.
There you go.
The martial law omnibus. I was looking high and low for that. I don't know if you've ever read that story.
I haven't. No, I don't know.
It's a dark humor. I think you would really enjoy that
Who's
book.
The author? Who's the?
It is by Mills and O'Neill, called Martial Law.
Law. Okay, look that up.
It's like a cop that goes and hunts superheroes because he just thinks they're the scum of the earth. He
Okay.
He takes out someone that looks like Batman and someone that's like Superman, and he deals with somebody that's like the Avengers who are in an insane asylum, and he's got to get into the insane asylum, and it's totally funny. You would just dig this wicked dark humor. I think it's something that's funny. But the next time I find myself out there in New York, maybe we get together, get a beer or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll be out there in a couple of days. No, just kidding.
Okay.
But I don't have anything else to ask. I mean, it's funny because I had like a bunch of different questions and stuff that I wanted to go through, and we just streamlined through almost everything in and off the outline. Actually, I did kind of have one I think we missed. Now, I'm not a proponent or a detractor from the 5th edition. It just so happens that's what we're using. Mm-hmm. But like when the Pathfinder 2nd edition eventually comes out in its complete form, do you guys think you guys are going to move over to that or stay with your 1st edition?
I think right now, my guess are what we'll do is if we have any existing shows, like if Giant Slayer is still going, Ruins of Aslan, the Raise Lost Continent, that those we will keep the same rule set for those. But anything new that we do, if we do anything new, it would be in 2nd edition.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, I was reading through their the PDF that they had dropped and just going through a lot of stuff, and I'm like, well, I know this is a play test. It's important to know that they bound this thing in a hardback book, though. And that's an apprehension of mine as well. I don't want to buy a play test. I want to buy the finished product. So I'm waiting to see what else they come up with and where they modify certain things. But I've always, like I said, I've been a huge fan of Pathfinder, and I just really like the mechanics. I don't want them to detract too far and dumb it down. I know 5th edition runs smoothly and everything, but it also seems like it's more of a light beer, and Pathfinder's more of like a Guinness.
Right.
You've got the full body to it. So I'm kind of curious to see where the 2E will land between the two. So,
well, I think I told Eric Mona, who's the publisher, I said, there is an inherent problem that you're going to face with 2nd edition because you are trying to sell a new product to a consumer base that was drawn to your product because they don't like change. Right. Yeah. And everyone who came over to Pathfinder wanted to do it because they didn't like 4th edition. They wanted something more like, that they liked before. So that is an inherent hurdle that they're going to face. Now, I really like so far what I've seen of second edition. I know they're going to tweak it a lot, but there's a lot of it that I really like, and I'm looking forward to the finished product. Like, I love the 3-action economy. I love the way spell casting works with like heightened spells, the kind of combines meta magic feats with like the core kind of spell casting component. There's a lot of it that I like, and I can't wait to see how it ends up. But I'm definitely excited.
Well, I'm thinking that might be the gateway for my group at some point down the line, if that's where they wish to go, because, you know, I look at a lot of the campaign settings for that Wizards has put out, and I'm not really impressed with them, even though I've kind of picked them up over time. It's nothing that I would run. You know, I prefer to do my own homebrew stuff, but when I look at the APs that Paizo have put out, they're strong. They're strong.
Yeah, they're so good. I love Galarian. Like, I love the setting so much. It's so rich. It has basically everything in it that you would want, any kind of tone that you want, like that you could find a place for it. And yeah, the adventure paths themselves they're fantastic. It makes me sad that I know I will never live long enough to play through all of them. Like, I have to kind of like pick and choose.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering how you guys decided we're going to go with this path or we're going to do this AP. You know, it's like you have so many choices. Like going to a buffet where you got, you know, ribeye, lobster, and, you know, calamari. It's like, well, what do I want? I can only eat so much tonight. You know, it's like,
yeah,
you got to pick and choose. But
that was one of the reasons we chose Giant Slayer. You're right. I think we kind of touched on this, but it was the newest one to come out, so we figured the fewest number of people will have played it already and would be interested to listen to it being played. And B, it had that old school feel. It was like fighting giants.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, like against the giants. It was just like, yeah, that feels like old school D&D. Like, let's do that.
Yeah, and I totally get that, the way you guys do your gameplay, and it definitely feels old school.
Great.
But anyways, I think that about wraps it up. If there's anything else you'd like to add, or...
Yeah, we've got our live show, our second live show at PAX Unplugged at the last weekend of November coming up. Real excited about that. We're doing our second installment of the Strange Eons story. And check out our other podcasts, Glass Cannon Podcast, Androids and Aliens, and our Patreon subscribers for $5 and up can listen to the Raiders of the Lost Continent podcast, our playthrough of Ruins of Aslan, which I'm running. glasscannonpodcast.com.
Thank you very much, Skid. I appreciate you coming on, man. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
and by the way, I am your $5 Patreon.
All right. Good for you.
I'm not going to stop, man.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate that,
no
man.
Problem. Thank you.
I'm sorry we had such a problem trying to get this thing, you know, and I got to be honest, I was so nervous, like a fucking schoolgirl. Like,
oh, no.
You know, it's, you know, it's, you know what it is I really value people in this hobby. In fact, I wanted to ask you another question. I totally forgot about, you know, like, have you realized how much you've legitimized our hobby, you know, and us as gamers, that the podcast really has done amazing job for that. And I mean, you can't beat that.